It is here, 250 kilometer review video. So I've done about 155 miles on this machine right now. And how has it performed? Well, I've gone out. Originally it was nice weather. Now we're heading into winter faster than we can believe it. So I've got the rear mudguard fitted, and that has held off the water and the mud absolutely spot on. So there's been no overspray on that at all. So that's worked really, really well. Originally went out with just the tyre because it looks, well, I think it looks best without anything on it, no furniture on it, just as it was designed really. But stuck that on now. The nice reflective tape on the back adds to the extra visibility at night, especially as the nights are drawing in. The lights have all worked exceptionally well. I say the only thing really from the same I was talking about in the original unboxing, the range test, it'd be nice if this also adjusted, this front light, as when you're going up hills and down hills. That would be a sweet little addition to it. In terms of the ride and the feel, I've got used to the conditioning on my ankles for this part here, because there's no side pads. They do come in the box with the later versions. Some of you guys report you didn't get any pads in there at all, but we did in ours, so they fit across the top, so it bring out a little bit further, but even so there's nothing here. It's dead smooth, it is solid, but my ankle got used to that, so it took 25 miles ish to actually condition in and get used to that sort of beating that your ankle gets just here on the ankle bone. The foot plates have performed well in the wet weather as well, but they definitely need grip tape on them. So as standard, they don't come with a grip tape, but it came in the box, so you can stick it on, which I definitely advise. Now, so when we had real hard rain, same footwear worn the whole time, and I wear it on across all wheels as well, which is the Skechers, which tend to grip pretty well, to be fair. They started to slip under heavy braking, and acceleration started to twist and slip on the foot pads, foot plates. So definitely fit the grip tape, and if you didn't get grip tape in your box, you need to go and buy some skateboard grip tape and cut the shape and do it that way. So wet weather, not ideal with these foot plates, so get the grip tape on. See, it was supplied in the one we've got, supplied in there, so that's fine. Cut to shape already. The other thing is, which is a little bit disappointing, is on the foot plates, these are not stainless steel. We actually get rust spots on top of these nuts here, which is a real shame, as you can see here, and it actually drips down. So that's a bit of a shame. If that was stainless steel, that would finish that off nicely. It's not a major problem. It's just that it doesn't look very good when you actually, when you actually open it up after riding in the rain. Now you can see the foot plates here. You can see that there's not much, or if any, damage underneath them. So we haven't found the ride height an issue at all. You get the usual damage across the edge, the leading edge, where you knock it when you're riding through narrow places. But underneath, there's no damage at all. So in that terms of ride height, it's been absolutely fine, and a lot of it is basically 50% of my riding is off-road, 50% on-road, so that's held up really well. The other big thing we should probably move on to, aside from reliability, which by the way we've had no faults whatsoever, so that's a real short one there, no issues, it still works exactly like it should do, never feels weak, no issues there whatsoever. So just touched on those. The pickup handle works every time. Every time you pick it up, it shuts off. Every time you put it down, it comes back on again. That's good. The only time I suppose I find it that a bit annoying is the fact when you pick it up, I mean, you can shut this off in the app as well. If you don't want that to work as a lift mechanism and to shut the wheel off from spinning, you can actually just turn that off in the app. But when you're trying to, I used to use wheeling it along. So you're holding it down the floor and you're wheeling it and trying to like pick it up a couple of steps or something, and you actually want the wheel to grip in and help you and aid you in that. Of course, as soon as you apply any pressure to pull it up here, it will shut the wheel off. So from that point of view, unless you're doing quite a speed to start with, then it won't, because the firmware won't allow you to shut off by pulling up the handle when the wheel's in motion. So, but it requires a certain set speed for that to do that. So the thing we should move on to is this tyre. Now, in the original test, the unboxing and the range test, this tyre was a bit of a nightmare in terms of roundabouts and stuff. Now, that still stands, but it's a lot better at the higher pressure for my body weight, so 84 kilograms. What I'm finding is the higher pressure, so I pumped it to 32 psi, which is the maximum as per tyre sidewall, and that now responds better at a lower speed. So the lower speed is not as, is still, as always, it's possible to ride it, no issues, you can definitely ride it. It's not like it's a no-rider, it's just more difficult than other wheels out there. So the M Super X with an 18-inch, almost 19-inch wheel. That is easier across some tram lines and shapes in the road and cambers is easier than this wheel. But at higher pressure, actually, this is now easier. It's still not as easy, but it's definitely taken the edge off it being so difficult to ride at low speeds with the higher pressure for my weight. So that's worked well there. Where it hasn't made it basically hardly any difference, only a smidgen of difference, is the roundabouts. So the original video, if you go and look at that, we spent some time on the roundabout. Go and have a look at that. The wheel still tries to stand upright. You can lean into it as much as you want. You can bend your knee. I've seen people saying you should be like on a motorbike. I've got a lot of experience with riding motorcycles. I'm telling you that with me on this wheel, I cannot get this thing to lean in. I can put all my weight over, which you can see in the video. The wheel's here and I'm leaning this much, trying to get the flipping thing to actually bend over. I'm tucking this knee in, this knee out. I'm trying all different techniques to try and get to push the thing over. And at the faster the speed, the more it tries to stay upright, which can be a benefit. But in that exact scenario going around and roundabout, other wheels, I can whip around those roundabouts a lot quicker than I can on this, despite trying. So we're quite a few miles in now, so we're starting to get to grips with it fully. And I can obviously report back what's more difficult and what isn't. Can you go around and roundabouts? No problem at all. Yes, you can. Can you do it as quick as other wheels? No. I could get on the M Super X and I could whip this thing all day long in terms of range, power, and speed. But in terms of the quality of this wheel, what you're getting is still it remains the same as when I unboxed it, which is exceptional, and it's a very exciting wheel for sure. But the range, I would have said, for me personally, is a bit limiting. It's a limiting factor. If you're pushing this hard, as we do in these tests, then you're looking at what we say, which is 25, 30 miles at sort of maximum. And remember, it is frustrating, the alarm system coming in just after 50%. You're riding at a speed where the alarm will go off more and more and more, and that last 10% of this wheel isn't really usable range. So you've got to kind of say you can only use 90% of your battery and 90% of your range anyway. You lose the last 10% because it's imminent to actually just turning off and saying you can't ride anymore, go in charge. So there is that. I mean, if you're looking for a real long range machine, this isn't it. You do need to head towards like the Gotways and things like that for that long range. So Kingsong, Gotway, anything with a much bigger battery in it. So 20, 25 miles, 30 miles on this machine, that seems quite regular. It's been charged loads of times now. There is a function within the application to monitor how many charges you've had. Now that isn't accurate. We know this because we did a full charge from more or less empty from when we ran out in the first video up to 100%. When you look at the app, it says 0 charges, full charges completed. So, okay. But it's very, very good. So if you do a hard ride and you come back and you put it on charge, the charger stays green, and that's because it's all hot. And what it does, it tries to protect the battery. So that is an absolutely brilliant little feature. So you plug the charger in, it won't charge until it cools down. Then it will start charging automatically. So you don't need to wait, you can just leave it plugged in and it will kick in. So that's a nice little feature. Now where I stand with this wheel is that I absolutely thoroughly enjoy riding it. I really, really do. It's a great wheel. But it is not my go-to wheel still after having it and experiencing it for this time. Obviously we're going to ride it to 1,000 kilometers. I still tilt towards the M Super X at this point in time, mainly because it's a little bit easier to ride. Just less effort, it frees me up a little bit more, and just the range, the fact that you can just pull out of the car and you know you can do these journeys because it's such a big battery, 1600 watt hours compared to this 995 watt hours, so it's a significant difference. But for what it's designed for, so if I'm doing short stints and I want to have a great whip around in the forest on the trails and stuff like that, it's brilliant. You can't deny it. Puts a smile on your face, and it attracts a lot of attention as well. So no issues whatsoever. The tyre inflation up to 32 psi has made things easier, but it hasn't ruled it out completely. It's been exactly the same as other wheels I've ridden in terms of ease of use. It's still more difficult, more work to ride, but you do get some advantages from it. And of course there is a disadvantage I should mention. With that now at 32 psi, I'm getting hit off-road. So if I hit a stone sort of that size off-road on a trail, it's really sharp. And in fact, I did jar my neck riding this with it at 32. But I'm going to keep it at 32 because actually overall there's benefits for me and my weight. It sits quite nicely on the road now, and the tram lines, multi-services aren't such an issue. But off-road is now a harsher ride than it was before. Obviously the lower pressure, the more suspension you've got in that tyre, and it will take the bumps a bit more. So you've got to weigh these things up for where you're riding and what's going to suit you. But so obviously I'm getting the maximum possible range out of it, 32, and the best ride comfort apart from hitting stuff off-road. That's a bit more difficult. In terms of the braking, which I did mention in the first video, there's a brake assist within the application that actually tilts back the foot plates by 3mm, I think it is, to help you with braking. Now that actually is probably, for my own personal situation, is worthwhile turning off. I've actually found that tilting back when you're not actively trying to brake per se. So what's happened is you've gone round, you've gone into a corner, you just tipped off a little bit, and then you're just about to kick back in, it starts to tilt back. It's like, whoa, 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 don't want to brake here, I want to lean forward. So there is that going on. You wrestle with it sometimes. Overall, it's okay. Doesn't really stop the wobble at high speeds. I've literally just been taking up and down the warehouse corridors, getting up to 20 miles an hour, putting the brakes on, you get a little wobble coming in, all from the tyre really. And that, you don't get that on other machines, or I don't. So yeah, there is still that dense, small area and no grip really when you're braking that I talked about in the first video. But there's not really a lot of negatives to say about this. It's only if it's outside your use pattern that you can really start falling into the negatives, a tyre aside. So your range, basically. Speed, it hits that spot. I mean, you don't want to be going fast. I keep saying this in the videos. We pushed them in the test, but this is a special circumstance, and we're all fully kitted out with a lot of expensive equipment on to try and cover off the possibilities of any injury. So the range is about the biggest, I would have said. If you're thinking about doing a lot of distance, then you're going to struggle with this. But 25 miles, you're still talking like almost 2 hours of riding, pretty much. So you've got to kind of evaluate it. If this is your first wheel, trying to think what you want out of it, and realistically, will you actually be doing what you think you're going to be doing? Are you really going to be going 35 miles? Because if you are, then obviously this will not do it in one trip. But if you're not really going to be doing that, you're doing 15 miles, say to work, you can charge at work and come back again, this will be absolutely brilliant. As a commuting tool, this is an awesome piece of equipment. So really like it. In terms of the actual, any damage, there is no damage. This is holding up really, really well. This isn't wearing down. I say everything's working as it should. There's no issues whatsoever. So from that point of view, it's holding up well. So that's really it. That's the summary of 250 kilometers. The next one will be at 650 kilometers, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy every single mile of it. But for me, I say this, in my own personal feedback, I'm not longing to ride this over any other wheel. It's not like it really sticks out and I can throw all the rest away. My go-to wheel is the M Super X at this point in time. I can't see that changing, but you never know. This looks better, I think, than the M Super X. But yeah, in terms of overall comfort and ride and what it can attain with the M Super X, I'm getting more miles out of it and more power delivery up the hills in terms of feel of the ride and availability of that power, and beyond the 50%. So it's still giving you that after the 50% of riding, basically, whereas this starts to dial it all back at that point and cuts down drastically, I say, when you get to 10%. So it's more or less unrideable, whereas you get more out of the M Super X just by default because of bigger batteries. Yeah, so I'm just trying to compare it with almost a like-for-like wheel to a degree, the closest match that I can think of, and just giving my personal opinion on that. The 25 miles, if you're happy with that range, and you're happy with the power delivery, and you're happy with the restrictions after a certain percentage, then you cannot go wrong. You really cannot. There's nothing to fault with this wheel. It's performed flawlessly, and I really hope it does for the next 600 up to 650 kilometers, so I can report back good things. So there we have it. If you've got any questions or comments, then please do so below. Like and share and subscribe, of course, which is very, very important to us and to the community, because we spread these videos as far and wide as we can. And don't forget weekly EUC show. But until that one, I will catch you guys later.